Now, hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Live with Roger Hanson. Today I have a special guest. This is DDJ and we are doing an interview with him with concerns about welfare, child welfare laws. Now, before I get going any further with that, I do have to ask you one question, DDJ. Do you know just about the laws in the United States, or are you familiar with these laws abroad?
Well, a couple things first. First and foremost, thank you for having me on. And secondly, your audio is going in and out, and if you could turn the music down, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So the music.
Yeah. And your voice is breaking up a little bit. Just a little FYI. I mean,
Yeah,
listen, every stream, it happens, so it's not any big deal with you. As far as the United States is concerned, my experience from 1996 forward has been primarily in the United States.
Okay.
I've practiced law as a high conflict litigation paralegal in probably about 15 states. I've also done a lot of research in Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. In fact, if people go to my YouTube channel, I've actually interviewed people in the United Kingdom about their laws as well. And I've also done a little bit of work with the EU, but not much to talk about.
Okay. Now, before we get into all that, though, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to also say that Naroki 5 is here too. Before we say anything or get started, I want to say hi to Naroki. And Naroki, if you want to say hi real quick.
Hello, yeah, I am Naroki5, host of the Red Pale Nation Hangout. I'm the guy who recommended, because when you mentioned this topic, I knew DDJs a lot. I am also a member of the Manosphere, but my experience comes more in the area of false accusations and relationship dynamics and that sort of thing, as opposed to DDJ. I never had to deal with the I would almost say the misfortune of being married or having a psychotic ex, although there's been some interesting stuff that's happened in the news this week that we could cover at some point as well. But I'll turn it back to you, Roger.
Okay. So we have Naroki on here as a panel member for DDJ's interview, and how this goes, DDJ, is we, as a panel, me and Naroki, listen to your story, and if there's something that we want to ask you, we either have the option of asking you while you're being interviewed or after your interview, whenever you're done telling everything that you have to say. Now, this is completely up to you how you would want that done. Would you prefer us ask you the questions during the interview or wait until it's over?
Honestly, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I'll be honest with you, though. Occasionally I do get my old man moment. So, if you do ask me a question and it derails me, well, that's on you. So it is what it is. But I just,
it's completely up to your preference either way.
Not a problem. Not a problem. And just so you know, too, sometimes, questions that seem to be easy questions to ask sometimes have a longer and more full-fleshed answer. So just FYI there too. But I've got plenty of time today, so I've blocked out a lot of time just to make sure, because I know like Naroki streams can go for 3 hours, so it is what it is. But I can be here as long as necessary to kind of completely answer any questions or anything that comes up.
Okay, that's fine, and don't worry about it. I do have talking points, so if we do kind of go off to the left a little bit, it's completely fine. I can get us back on track, so kind of stay within the limits of it. So and then if you have anything extra that you want to talk about, I have no problem with it. It's up to how long you want to do this interview and how long you don't want to do it. So it's completely your show from this point on. Okay, so with that, I want to hand the mic over to you. Give us a little background on yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there, okay?
All right, sounds good. Give me just a second here. I'm trying to make my Skype a little bit smaller. So apparently it just got really big. Apparently, so I'm having a boomer moment here on technology.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. So basically, I got involved in early 1996 when it came to family law and it came to manosphere. I got involved because there was a huge issue with a lot of corruption in the courts. And so I have 4 children. My 2 older children from my first wife were being abused by their stepfather. And the mom knew about it and helped cover it up. And that was obviously a serious problem for me. And so I had some serious issues with that, of course. And I tried to go through the legal system mistakenly thinking that this was going to work, and things are going to get resolved pretty quickly. Now, you should also understand, too, I was a very young father, and I was very naive when it came to issues of law and when it came to issues of, the court system, litigation, that sort of thing. So there were a lot of things that I was ignorant about back then. Now, as far as all that's concerned, I went to court. They ended up demonizing me specifically because I went to court, and I ended up losing. I had full custody of my kids after my divorce, and I ended up losing custody as a result of it. And so, that was frustrating to me because they tried to demonize me. They wanted to give me supervised visits when they couldn't conceal the abuse anymore. First, they said I was the abuser. Then they said that it was, the children's godfather who was the abuser. Anybody but the actual abuser. Well, it turns out that in the end of the day, 5 years later, the judge who took my children from me was the judge who gave them back. And by the way, I'm giving you kind of the Reader's Digest version. But in the course of the process, I couldn't get an attorney to defend me. In other words, I would hire an attorney. I'd walk into their office, and they'd sit in their office. They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll go ahead and do this, and I'm the expert, and blah blah blah." Right? I've got a bar card. And then the second that they would walk into court, they would do the equivalent. Like their battle cry was doing the equivalent of pulling their pants around their ankles and screaming, "Give it to me." Mm-hmm. And it was horrendous because I couldn't get anybody to defend me. And it turned out that the person who was the investigator on the case, the guardian ad litem, he was the former bar president, and he was openly homosexual. We'll kind of go into that later. And he was protecting the abuser. He was going out of his way to protect the abuser. And so what I found is that the courts are not a court of justice. They're a court of law. And they don't give a shit about justice. They don't care about any kind of what's best for the children. And part of that is because the court system is created specifically not the court system, but the family court system specifically has been created as a way to quasi-criminalize and to demonize and to discriminate against men and fathers under color of law. And what I mean by that is that when you have a private party court action, so let's say, Roger, you and I are driving down the road and, I decide I'm going to run you off the road. So I run you off the road. I total your car. You have to go to the doctor. You're like, oh, this DDJ guy, he's an asshole. I'm going to sue him. So you file a lawsuit against me. Okay, so now you're asking for medical damages, you're asking for the replacement of your vehicle, plus if you lost your job or lost wages, and all the damages that you would normally ask for, right? Mental, physical, the whole thing. Well, when you go to court, you're suing me, and if you want to talk about your medical damages, then you would hire or you would bring in a doctor, maybe your treating physician, right? And you would have him testify in the stand as to what the facts are. That's not how the family court works. So if I'm married to Jane and Jane and I have children and we go into the court and we say, hey, we're concerned because our child is with a therapist and, Jane is being abusive according to the therapist, the court doesn't want to hear from the therapist. What the court wants to hear from is its own appointed person. So the court will appoint someone, whether it be a a guardian ad litem, a parenting investigator, court family investigator, whatever they, child family investigator, whatever they call it. Different states call it different things. And so what ends up happening is that rather than making a decision for itself, the court will rely on this expert that they've appointed. That, by the way, you have no say in. So you can't necessarily choose who you have investigated. It's a court insider, right? That person chooses who they like, and then they proceed to demonize everybody else. So, and they don't care about the children. So I've been in a lot of cases. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for since 1996. And then attorneys saw me in court, saw how good I was, and started hiring me. And then what they would do is I had holes in my knowledge, and these attorneys would fill those holes so that I could be more well-rounded. And, the litigation researcher I am today. But that said, they choose somebody, they demonize them. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about the law. They care about what their narrative is. And typically what happens is, because marriage has been dropping now, the marriage rate has dropped in the last 25 years, right? It's just fallen. And most recently in the last probably 5 years, it's fallen off a cliff. And the reason is because nobody wants to be married to someone who's cancer. And on the male side. On the female side, women are always told that they can do better. They're indoctrinated. And so a lot of people are like, oh, well, because like I'm MGTOW, but there's a lot of MGTOW out there that hate women and are like, I don't want anything to do with them, whatever. That's fine. That's up to them. But the reality is that one of the 3 pillars of MGTOW is to support positive femininity. And what I mean by that is that women that are decent women. Now, there's no such thing as a NAWALT, which is not all women are like that. Every woman is promiscuous if you catch her on the right day. But that said, a lot of women are told and are indoctrinated to believe, oh, well, I can always do better. And you'll hear like tradcons, you'll hear pastors, you'll hear conservatives, you'll even hear feminists. Oh, the reason this woman left this person is because there was something wrong with the guy. That's not the case. If that were the case, why did Brad Pitt get divorced? The man's worth $500 million. Right? He was considered one of the sexiest men alive. And Angelina Jolie, after she cut her tits off, divorced him. And then falsely accused him of domestic violence. Okay, he ended up fighting that for years. Johnny Depp is the same thing. Sexiest man alive, worth $400 million, married Amber Heard, and it turned out she was a domestic violence perpetrator. And even the courts were so biased, like in the United Kingdom, Johnny Depp lost his case in the United Kingdom against a news outlet, because they said, oh, well, it doesn't matter. She said you abused her, so therefore you did. So a lot of these court systems, they're not court systems of justice. They're very discriminatory against men. There was a guy in British Columbia probably about 4 or 5 years ago who was a big like a media personality. Turned out he was like also just this lech, right? He just, he screwed everything that moved. Well, he was accused of sexual assault by this woman. And they protested against him because he had the audacity to defend himself from the charges. And this guy's like a multimillionaire. I think he was an Indian guy, like a Red Dot Indian. And so
Jean Gomeshi,
yes,
that was actually Ontario. Yeah. It was Ontario, not BC.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So Gian Gomeshi, yeah, that's right. And Gian defended himself, and he had a female attorney who defended himself, and he won on all charges because they figured out that these women had made it up, and more importantly, that they colluded, and they were able to get the discovery done to make that happen. But his case is the outlier. It's the exception. It's not the rule. And what I mean by that is that it's not the exception because he was innocent. It's the exception because he was actually able to prove the collusion amongst the other side. These women got together and they colluded to basically financially rape him and to have him falsely imprisoned. And this happens a lot. There are Facebook groups that have been around for 15, 20 years, ever since Facebook has come out, that teach women how to destroy men. There was even a book out on Amazon for a while called DAMN. It was an acronym, DAMN, Destroy Any Man Now. And I have a copy of it. But basically, if you read it, if you can find it online and you read it, it is a primer of how to destroy a man. And literally, it's the playbook that every feminist uses, whether it's in family court, whether it's a Me Too attack for extortion on a rich person or a successful person, or whether it's, we need to get rid of a media personality to make room from some social justice hack, right? The playbook is generally speaking the same. So with that said, the family courts, going back to the family courts, I know I kind of got on a bit of a tangent. Going back to the family courts are not a court of justice. They are a court of discrimination. And child support is not set correctly. So like when you discuss child support does not take into effect, first and foremost, most of these child support charts haven't been changed in probably 20 years, okay? So inflation has risen in 20 years. A rent from a one-bedroom apartment in any city in the country is not the same today as it was 20 years ago. It's a lot higher. Same with utilities, same with electricity, food, especially fuel. I think since the 2020 election, fuel has gone up by about 130%. Food in many cases, especially for basic foodstuffs, eggs, meat, things like that, they've gone up probably between 40 and 70%. So for people to go, oh, the inflation rate's 5%, 10% or whatever, that's all bullshit. That doesn't even pass the straight face test for anybody who has been paying attention, who's been sober long enough to figure it out. But that said, going back to the court system, the courts discriminate against men at all levels. And part of this is because of all the feminist indoctrination that's been going on. The other issue is that a lot of these governmental agencies, when it comes to men, like police departments, court jurisdictions, even the FBI now, right? The FBI and a lot of three-letter alphabet agencies, what ends up happening is that they end up taking taxpayer dollars, and they take those taxpayer dollars and they shift them from the police department, from the therapists, the court-ordered therapists, from the court systems, and they give that money to NGOs, wrongfully enriching them. Now, there's no basis in law for any of this, just so we're clear. They just do it, and they do it because no one has stopped them. And so let's say you have like the National Organization of Women. I'm just using this as an example. I don't know if they're actually doing this per se, but I know, like, for instance, the domestic, what is it called, DAIP, which created the Duluth model. Okay, their organization is a perfect example. So the founders of the Duluth model, they were able to get taxpayer funding, okay, without taxpayer approval. The courts were able to take that money from taxpayers, give it to these people, falsely enrich them, and then they adopted their recommendations for court. So what would happen is a police officer would normally respond, before all this happened, a police officer would normally respond to a domestic violence incident, right? He'd show up to the house, maybe the husband and the wife were yelling at each other, the neighbor heard yelling, a husband or a wife, maybe they threw something on, at the wall, right? But neither one is injured, okay? The way it used to be is a cop could make an educated guess as to what's going on. He'd write a report, and if these people were constantly doing it, there'd be a record of it, right? There'd be 4 or 5 incidents of, and like they go, oh, it's the Smiths again. They always do this, or it's the Smiths again. There sounds like they're escalating. Maybe we need to do something, right? But their relationship, for all intents and purposes, is intact because they've created this dysfunctional dynamic where, in order to continue being in a relationship, occasionally they got to throw something against a wall, right? So, and unfortunately, that's just the messiness of relationships. Is that sometimes people do shit that's dysfunctional. But anyway. So what they would have discretion as to whether or not they would what they would do. So what happened is when the taxpayer money went to these NGOs were put in a superior position to law enforcement. Now you need to understand, they didn't have any law enforcement training. They didn't go through any background checks. They didn't have any kind of law enforcement background. They were never vetted the way law enforcement officers are vetted, okay? These are just feminist hacks that sit down next to these cops, and they're reading their reports, and they're going, well, we don't like the way that you handled this thing. You need to arrest somebody. So that's how it all started. And
now,
what ended up happening... Go ahead.
Before you go any further, could you stop there for a second and elaborate a little bit on the term NGO? Because I think people listening really do need to understand the difference between governmental and non-governmental.
All right, so let's NGO stands for non-governmental organization. Basically, you're talking about a 501c3 or a 501c4 nonprofit organization. But your problem with those nonprofit, and I say that in air quotes, is for about the last 25 years, there's been what's called a nonprofit industrial complex. So you get some loser that basically contributes nothing to society. They create this non-governmental organization, this nonprofit, and then they get some money donated to them because it's tax write-off, right? Mm-hmm. And then what ends up happening is they pay themselves $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 a year. BLM is a perfect example. The founder of BLM took BLM donated funds, and she bought like $6 million worth of houses, bought 4 separate houses for herself, and gave herself an astronomical paycheck. Or who's the guy on CNN, the black guy that used to march with Martin Luther King? He's real skinny now. You know who I'm talking about? I forget his name.
He was
Don Lemon?
Not Don Lemon. This guy's an old guy. He's probably in his 60s or 70s now. But okay. He marched with Martin Luther King. But anyway, that guy's a billionaire. And that guy's a billionaire because he created an NGO to ride the coattails of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement. And the guy's got his own private jet he owns outright. He's got properties everywhere, security detail, the whole thing. You have to understand, a lot of these NGOs, they're corrupt. They're basically a way for people to defraud everybody under the guise of goodwill, and they're as bad as televangelists. Televangelists are con artists as well. A lot of these televangelists are like, oh, God says you need to buy me a new plane. God says you need to buy me a cigarette boat. God says you need to buy me a house with a pool and a hot tub in it. I know, because God talks to me, right? Mm-hmm. It's that kind of bullshit. So with that in mind, these NGOs, they have no training. They have no experience. In fact, even one of the ladies in Duluth model, I actually did a video about this. She admitted that before she got into the Duluth model, she said basically that no one should have ever trusted them. She had a liberal arts degree, a liberal arts bachelor's degree. It was her and 2 other women. And she admitted that nobody should have ever trusted them. Nobody should have ever taken them at face value. It was a complete, pardon me, fucking scam. And I say fucking scam because millions of men's lives across the Western world are destroyed every year as a result of the Duluth model. You have children destroyed. Go ahead.
If I may step in for a second, yeah, the Duluth model is like the international model for domestic violence in the overwhelming majority of law enforcement agencies in the West.
Well, yeah, and I was just about to get to that. So it's not only in the United States. The Duluth model was a foundation in Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia. It's now in South America. It's across the European Union, and elements of it have been adopted by the United Nations and the EU. So you have to understand. And by the way it spread like an STD. The way it was able to spread like that was because your taxpayer dollars were misappropriated to give these people money so they can go out and they can export it globally. And so now a lot of these feminists are multimillionaires. They're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And like Gloria Steinem, for example, she was a prominent second wave feminist. What a lot of people don't know, and I talk about in my book, The Feminist Lie, it was never about equality, # shill alert. She was working for the CIA for 10 years. She dated Henry Kissinger. She worked for the federal government. She literally was a CIA-paid feminist agitator. That's what she was.
So you just told me she dated Henry Kissinger? Oh, my God.
Yeah. She dated Henry Kissinger, which tells you that every woman has her price, right? But that said, I think that when we talk about this sort of thing,
that's a pretty rough price, though, man. I'm sorry.
Henry Kissinger, even back in the '60s, was not a very attractive man. Well, that just tells you about.
He was Quasimodo.
Yeah, he was never attractive.
No, this guy was never a supermodel, but she was supermodel hot back in the day. But let me tell you something, this goes to show you that, doesn't matter how hot the woman is, right? She's really attracted by the size of this man's pocketbook. Yeah. So, that's really the long and the short of it, quite literally. But I'm saying, at the end of the day, when you understand how pervasive this is, then everybody's like, when the Duluth model, so here's the other thing that they do, right? So when the Duluth model started taking friendly fire because it turned out that it wasn't improving anybody's life and it was destroying men's lives. They're like, oh, we don't use a Duluth model anymore. So what they did was they'd take 95% of the Duluth model, rebrand it as something else, and then go, look, we fixed it, right? And no, they didn't. They just rebranded the same old bullshit and continued discriminating against men. So when I talk about men's lives being destroyed, let me explain what it is I'm talking about. So if typically what happens is that a man will get a false accusation. Now that false accusation is at one of three levels. You have DEFCON 1, 2, and 3, DEFCON 3 being the highest, right? So DEFCON 1, for purposes of this conversation, is, oh, he hit me, right? He hit me, he threatened me, he was going to beat me up, okay? DEFCON 2 is he beat up the children, if they have children together, right? DEFCON 3 is he raped my kids. All right. Now you have to understand that the reason that it's in that order is because that's what happens in family court. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been in family courts across the United States. And I've also, when I was running my channel, I heard horror stories from around the world from people who would send me emails and direct messages, and people that would just be guests on some of my live streams. So you have to understand that what happens is they want to control the man. The domestic violence allegation, the allegation of physical or sexual violence, is considered the silver bullet of family law. No one ever investigates it. There's usually no police report. Child Protective Services typically won't investigate it. They just make the allegation, and the allegation is enough to destroy men's lives. So basically what you're talking about here is you're talking about step one is he beat me up. Step two is he beat up the kids. Step three, or he neglected the kids, right? And then step three is he raped me and the kids. Now, the reason they do that is because feminists created what's called a no-fault divorce. Now, a lot of people talk about the difference between fault and no-fault divorce, and they act like one is better than the other. But let me tell you something. Both are cancer. And the reason both are cancer is, you can take the United Kingdom as an example. The United Kingdom had fault divorce up until a few years ago. The problem was that in every divorce case, there was allegations of domestic violence. So poof, now you have your blame, right? So now the woman goes, oh, look, I have my grounds for divorce because he's abusive, right? And they've even transformed the definition of abuse. Like if you look at the criminal domestic violence, okay? Criminal domestic violence is intimate partnered violence between a romantic couple, okay? But in family law, the definition is different. Domestic violence means against your kids, your stepkids. It means your stepkids' siblings that may not even be yours. It means your wife's parents. It means your grandchildren and the grandparents. You have to understand it's a fully encompassing definition. Now, the reason that's important is because when you file a domestic violence restraining order against somebody, if you're a female, typically about 85 to 90% of them are granted because they hand them out like candy. Okay, if you're part of the LBGT mafia, if you're a minority female, if you're a female of any race, really, you're going to get a domestic violence restraining order for free. Women who claim domestic violence are a protected class in this day. They are a favored class. They are so favored that if you're an illegal immigrant and you're female and you come to the United States illegally, let's say you're a drug whore for the cartels, right? You come to the United States and you accuse somebody of domestic violence. Let's say you sleep with a white guy or you sleep with an American citizen of some other race, and you falsely accuse somebody of domestic violence. They will fast track your citizenship and they will get rid of your illegal immigration status immediately. You get expedited preferred status. You get, basically, it's like getting in the clear line at the airport, right? So you have to understand, domestic violence victims are a favored class, because what happens is the second you say the word domestic violence, it triggers all this federal funding. So one of the things I always say is that children in family court and women who falsely accuse men of domestic violence, they're job creators. Yeah. They're job creators for the welfare state. And they create jobs for cops. They create jobs for social workers because a lot of these women are on welfare. They create jobs for mental health therapists because a lot of these women are crazy. Their children are crazy. They create jobs for special ed teachers and everything else because their kids are so fucked up they can't function in a normal society. I mean, it's just, they're basically, they help the welfare state. That's why everybody pushes it, and that's why you never hear about it. And there's this huge, well-funded propaganda campaign, it's full spectrum, that is used to demonize anybody who speaks out about it, whether you're a father, whether you're a husband, or anybody else. Look at Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp lost his jobs just on the accusation of Amber Heard, with no police report, with no arrest, with no conviction, not even any criminal charges. This man was basically raped for millions and millions of dollars of lost revenue and opportunity loss just because of the accusations. Okay. And a guy like that, he was worth like $300-400 million. He can survive it. But the average American who earns somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 a year, you've just destroyed their life. You take their job from them, they become homeless. One of the top 3 reasons that a man becomes homeless in the United States for the last 30 or 40 years is a breakup with a woman and a false accusation. Because they can't find anybody to rent to them. They can't find anybody to give them a job. They were lied about. And a lot of these people, they're falsely in prison. Because what happens is that, and jumping back to the domestic violence, what happens is that once they get the false allegation of domestic violence and they have the court order for that, then what happens is the police prosecute him and they railroad him, and then they convict him. And then once they convict him, he's done. And any attorney he gets, even if he can't afford one, basically does their best to roll over and play dead. They're not defending him, because the attorneys are making money off the system too. But more importantly, any attorney who defends a man gets hammered by the legal system. They get completely, look at all the people who defended Trump. I've been saying this since 2016. Trump is getting the family law treatment. When Trump was in office, whether you support him or hate him, when Trump was in office, he was sued over 400 times. Okay? Now, that said, when you look at Trump today in 2023, every attorney who's defended Trump has gotten a bar complaint, has gotten criminal charges filed against him, or people have been trying to sue him in the Stone Ages, because they don't want people defending Trump, because Trump is a heterosexual white male. This has nothing to do with his politics as much as that he won't carry their narrative. Now, again, it doesn't matter if you support or don't support Trump. Frankly, I think Trump should have declared an insurrection, and he should have taken the police and fucked with all of them, and had the military show up at big tech and arrest everybody for treason. But it's too late now, and they're never going to let him back in the office, I think, but we'll see. Naroki?
Oh, okay, yeah, I was waiting for a pause there for you to step in.
Caffeine loves me.
Yeah. Process as punishment. I mean, you pretty much covered it, but I think you might want to get a little bit more into that as well, because that was my experience. Everything that DDJ was talking about. I mean, I say I didn't, thank God, have to go through family law. But I did have to deal with numerous false accusations of stalking, and I found out, oddly enough, when Tom Likas did an interview with Dr. Tara Palmache, and she was actually describing the typical personality of a person that gets hit with a lot of these false accusations, and she literally described me on the radio. It's just like DDJ was saying. It's just simply the accusation itself, and then the whole process starts, even if it's on a work site, right? Like you have to.
Let's take it a step further, and let's be clear. What you've said, Naroki, about process as punishment, that is absolutely the case. So, like, I was in New York State with an attorney, and who unfortunately has recently passed. He was a MGTOW attorney. We were in court in New York State, in upstate New York. And courts up there are sealed, okay? In a lot of places, they are family courts. So we're in upstate New York, and our client was accused of domestic violence, okay? And as far as that's concerned, because the accusation of domestic violence existed, even though so here's the issue. The family investigator tells the court, yeah, there's an accusation of domestic violence and we're concerned about it. Here's the problem. The child never accused our client of domestic violence. It was the family investigator who was, okay?
Okay.
So the court stops in the middle of this hearing, and the court and the parenting investigator, the guardian ad litem, whatever they're called, they have this conversation, this sidebar conversation in the middle of the hearing, where they're talking about, because there's an accusation of how they can get federal funding and how much federal funding they think they'll get from the accusation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here going, are you fucking kidding me? You're sitting here talking about gaming the federal government because there's an accusation, even though the accusation doesn't come from the child. Not a single person said that the child made the accusation. By the child, when I say child, the child was 14. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we're not talking about a toddler or anybody else. There was no police report. There was no therapist report going, this child said that, our client abused them, that whole thing. There was none of that shit, right?
Right.
And they're sitting here talking about this whole thing, and they literally extended the litigation, right? Specifically so they can get the federal funding because there was an accusation of child abuse. And here's the issue. This goes back to Naroki's point. The process is the punishment. When you're in divorce court, whether it's a custody for non-married people or whether it is a married divorce or post-divorce, right? Custody fight. The longer you're in court, the more it costs.
Right.
And a woman will always go, well, he's better off than me, right? And so the husband ends up paying for his attorney, her attorney, the family investigator, plus child support, plus possibility of alimony. He's now poor. He can't afford it. This goes back to my child support argument. It doesn't matter how much money you earn. It matters what the issue is. So let's say you're a single father and you're in, number one, you can't deduct your child support from your taxes. That's number one. Number two, your ex doesn't have to claim the child support she receives from you for taxes. This allows her to get welfare.
Or
this
be
allows
accountable in a lot of places.
Correct. Yeah. So it's not considered income for purposes of anything, right? So now you're in a situation where you can't deduct your child support from your taxes. She doesn't have to add it as income. And if you're paying $1,000 a month, you've just lost $1,000 or $12,000 of income a year. She's gained $12,000 of income a year. You don't get to deduct it, and she gets to claim it. But here's the other thing: even though she doesn't claim it as income, she gets to claim the children for tax purposes. So do you understand, like 85% of all custody cases turn out in the woman's favor. So now basically what they're doing is they're not only giving her the tax benefit of not having to claim that child support or alimony as income. I think alimony is claimed as income, but I think child support's not, at least in the United States. But that said, you don't have to claim it on your taxes as income, state or federal. Then on top of that, you get a tax break for having full custody of your children. Okay, that right there, that's institutional misandry. It's discrimination against men, and it is female superiority or gynocentrism. So bear that in mind, okay, as we're talking about this. So you have to understand, child support is not done correctly anyway, because it never takes into effect the real world costs of what it is for a man to survive. Most families today in the United States, most married families, okay, are living paycheck to paycheck. Even if they're earning $200,000+ a year, it's like 2/3 of all families are living paycheck to paycheck, and many of those paycheck to paycheck families are living on credit cards. They're maxing out their credit cards to do things like buy groceries or to pay medical bills or things that are absolutely necessary. Okay, the reason that's relevant is now let's add divorce to the pot, right? So now these people who can barely afford to live in the quality that they're living, they now are fucked because the house that they live in, they can't afford because now they're two households instead of one, right? So the husband has to pay for at least a 2-bedroom place if he has one kid, because he needs a bedroom for himself and he needs a bedroom for his kid. If he's got boys and girls, then it needs to be at least a 3-bedroom place so the boys can sleep in the same room and the girls can sleep in the other, right? That's so he can take visitation. Then on top of that, half the time, if he's making any kind of decent money, he's gonna have to pay a portion of his income to pay for her stuff. And they're like, oh, well, she gets to continue living the same standard of living that she lived while she was married. Well, that's not reasonable. That's not even realistic, right? That doesn't even pass the straight face test. But that's what the courts say. And so even though they can barely afford the house they were living in, they could barely afford the cars they're living in, especially if these cars are leased, which a lot of people lease their cars today. They can't afford that. Then you add attorney fees on top of that, his attorney fees, her attorney fees. I know, like, for example, in the state of Colorado, if you do what's called a parental rights evaluator, which a lot of family courts do, they start at $30,000. How many people have $30,000 just chilling in the bank waiting to be blown on some PRE, right? That's just, again, it doesn't pass a straight face test. These things, the process is the punishment, and it is engineered to destroy men's lives. And the reality is that, while I'm not necessarily a proponent of it, the reality is that, men who date women, they spend a lot of money, and all they get in return is maybe some sex occasionally, right? So they're spending thousands of dollars for a $4 piece of pussy, and
that's the reason why you're seeing MGTOW grow at an exponential rate, not just in North America, but
listen,
worldwide.
They were terrified of us. We had the MGTOW community was utterly decimated on YouTube through a combination of feminists coming after us, woke social justice warriors coming after us, but more importantly, manosphere PUAs and dating coaches. I mean, look at Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate ran this monster bot farm and memed himself into popularity, right? And I know a lot of the MGTOW content creators, they were mass flagged down, and then everybody was blaming everybody else, and then MGTOW community turned into a circular firing squad because most of them didn't have the opposable thumbs to kind of look at the big picture and go, maybe MGTOW's a threat. Maybe MGTOW is a threat to the system because MGTOW teaches men to be self-reliant, and MGTOW was the original red pill when it comes to women that really, for all intents and purposes, created, fueled, and grew the manosphere. So they destroyed the MGTOW community on YouTube. But what's funny is that not only did they destroy it, but they couldn't stop it because enough people had heard about it. The Zoomers and the millennials, they were growing up with single moms, and they saw it for themselves. And a lot of people didn't even know what MGTOW was, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to date a woman like my mom. I don't want to date a woman like this girl in high school who dated my friend and falsely accused him of rape, and he committed suicide. Which, by the way, the risk of suicide amongst men increases by 42% on a relationship breakup. So, this idea, and that's because men need women to survive when it comes to procreation and, biology, right? So there's biological reasons for that because men and women do better together. But that said, modern women are cancer. Modern women have been indoctrinated to be cancer. And so your problem is that a lot of these women, they're so hypergamous. And by the way, hypergamy is a function of nature. It's not a function of nurture. In other words, all female mammals, whether you're monkeys or dogs or wolves or whatever, you're all hypergamous, right? But on the same token, apes included, of course, even pavement apes. But anyway, but the point is that when it comes to all that, what ends up happening is that hypergamy has gone into overdrive thanks to feminism and woke policies and cuck trad con white knights, right? And I did a video a couple years ago about how you're going to watch a lot of these left-wing thought women. They're going to rebrand themselves as conservatives, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I've discovered my roots and whatever. It doesn't matter. You still don't pass the dick stacking test.
Shoe on head.
Shoe on head's a perfect example, but she's one of many, right?
Well, yeah, she was more of a centrist to start out with, but yeah, that's like, I mean, I saw her on Twitter very recently. Not recently, about 6 months ago. There was this one conservative. There's a group of women that suddenly decided they were going to start attacking the manosphere, and I kept noticing that. I mean, like, there's some of them that were lying, just like outright, blatantly lying, or taking one bad example. Because both you and I will agree on this, DJ. Not everybody in the manosphere is like all there mentally or morally.
That's an understatement. Yeah.
Right. And they took this, and this one Christian chick took this one statement and said, "Oh well, I see this all the time." So I asked her on Twitter. It's like, do you have a link for this? And
right.
She
started. I'll take things that never happened for $500.
Yeah. And do you have a link for this? Because I want to actually see this for myself. And, oh, I see this all the time. Well, do you have a link for it? Because otherwise, you're just posting something up. And you're making a claim without a shred of proof. And she freaked out, and she sent a whole truckload of white knights against me. And I noticed that on her feed that she had been upvoted by Lauren Chen, Shoe on Head, Dr. Sydney Watson, and don't even get me started about Sydney Watson because she's been making a lot of waves lately. She's been outvoted by literally everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to understand that a lot of these women, especially the professional feminists, right? They're opportunists, and so they basically go with whatever the wind direction is. I mean, it's like Tomi Lahren, right? Tomi Lahren was like the big white nationalist darling. Everybody's like, oh, we got to have kids with Tomi Lahren, and then she pissed off all the white nationalists by dating a black guy. Lauren Southern, perfect example as well. It turns out, actually, what's funny about Lauren Southern? It turns out that the guy that Lauren Southern dated and had a kid with, who was like some minority from, I don't know, like either Australia or someplace.
It was Australia, right. Yeah.
It turns out that that guy who dated her and had a kid with her, he worked for the federal government. He was like he was a Fed, right?
And he wasn't white. That matters to me, but he wasn't white. But I mean, I noticed on her Instagram feed,
she was pushing the whole white nationalist line, right? She was pushing, before she got with this guy, she was pushing the white nationalist line. This guy shows up. He's a minority, or he's a person of color. He gives her the pipe. He pops a kid into her, and then he leaves her and basically says, "Yeah, I'm a Fed. Have a nice day." Now the reason I bring that up is because in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of activists in the civil rights era that were marrying these guys and were getting together with these guys and having children with these guys. And they were like, 5-10 year relationships. And it turned out that these guys were they were basically deep cover Feds in the UK, the United States, Canada. And basically they were just stringing these women along. And in a lot of cases, these men actually had other wives and children by these other wives. So like there was a lot of like shady shit going on. And so for Lauren Southern to be long conned like that, the entertainment value is just great.
Well, I mean, on Instagram, she purposely hid her baby's face in a lot of her photos, and of course, and in particular, if you go on Gab, I noticed that there's a lot of people. There was like people going like Lauren Southern is the usual, that particular faction on Gab. So I mean, right. I was aware of it. It didn't really matter to me because I'm not white either, right? Yeah.
Right. But my point is that whether you're white or not, first and foremost, a lot of this stuff for the white nationalist movement, a lot of it's AstroTurf, right? Some of these organizations that have been around since the 70s, you found out that they were formed by the Feds. So you number one, you want to be careful of being Fed jacketed, like Patriot Front, Blood Tribe. A lot of these organizations, they have Feds in the upper echelons of their organizations. So even if they're legit organizations, they've been deeply infiltrated because they're looking for the next Gretchen Whitmer kidnappers or whatever, right? They're looking for basically justification for their situation. The other thing you got to remember too is organizations like the ADL are also funding white nationalist groups and outright hate groups because they need people to hate because they got to justify their existence. Because the reality is that feminism won in 1963 with the Equal Pay Act. The civil rights movement won in the 70s. So now everything now is just totalitarian, efforts to justify these organizations, existence and to falsely enrich the people that run them, whether it be, Jonathan Greenblatt or the rest of them. These guys are worth, a shit ton of money. They're not the common man, right? But that said, I mean, we're kind of going off the beaten track a little bit. Going back to domestic. There's
a couple things I do want to mention that really stuck out with what you guys are saying that I think we do have to elaborate on. And when it comes to these juvenile courts and everything, the one thing that also has to be brought up is the fact that these charges can be brought against the parents without any criminal charges whatsoever being brought up. These are most of the cases that show up in these court systems are civil cases. They're not even criminal. That's something
that's correct. And I will also say this, that if you're involved in family court, you need to understand that you're not litigating a divorce or a custody case. You're having full spectrum warfare waged against you. So you have eyes on you. There are people looking at you. Don't be surprised if your neighbors are questioned because of gang stalking. Yeah. I've seen situations where a father's neighbor will be questioned, and the person doing the questioning will say, "Hey, did you know that your neighbor's a drug dealer?" Or did you know that your neighbor's being investigated for child porn, right? Now all of a sudden your neighbors hate you.
Yeah.
Because of these
sometimes it's the case too where the neighbors are making accusations and there's nothing backing it up. They just make the statement to piss off the freaking family because they don't like them.
Well, yeah, you've always got that one neighbor in the neighborhood that really everybody hates, and the reality is that, you know, and it's because they're busybodies and they're just you know, drama queens, right? And if you don't know who that neighbor is, it's you. So you know, but that said, a lot of these cases, you're absolutely correct. They're civil cases. They're not criminal. But right now, like right in front of the United States Supreme Court, it used to be if you got convicted of a civil domestic violence restraining order, they took your guns away. You had no gun rights. It doesn't matter if you weren't criminally convicted or not. It's unconstitutional, but they take your guns away. But we live in a post-constitutional society, but that's a conversation for another day. But anyway, my point is that as far as that's concerned, my point is that, you know, we live in a society where your life is destroyed. You can't, if you have a domestic violence conviction, you can't work in certain industries. You can't get a job in certain areas, right? And your life is completely destroyed, even if there's no criminal conviction. But that said, like I said, it's full spectrum warfare. It's scorched earth against the male, and it makes no sense. And as far as child support, going back to touch on child support a little bit more, you know, if child support should be how much disposable income you have after your bills are paid. It shouldn't be the way it's set right now. It should be how much disposable income you have. In other words, how much money do you have after you pay your rent, you pay your car, you buy your food, you pay for your utilities, you pay for your medical insurance? How much do you have when you're done? That should be where the basis of child support comes from. But they don't do that because they don't want these women on welfare, because a lot of these women don't have really good jobs. Now, when it comes to college, though, in 2023, women are 2/3 of the graduates, and when it comes to standard like office jobs, women make up the majority of office jobs, including the medical field, the legal field, and the real estate field. So as AI comes into play, all these women are going to lose their jobs, and they're going to start turning to conservative. That's why you see this big conservative push, because these women see the recession, they see they're losing their jobs, so they have to hitch their wagon to a man who can earn and a man who can make money. And they don't do it because they love him. They do it because their baby needs a daddy and they need a roof over their head. And they're willing to do whatever sexual position or sexual favor you need to make sure that happens. That's the reality. Because, you know, younger women, feminism, like somebody said before a long time ago, feminism is really good for younger women because it protects them from the shame of being a prostitute, you know? And what I mean by prostitute is I'm talking about like dinner whores or people who spend money on just to have access to sex, right? But older women, feminism does a disservice to, because nobody wants the older women anymore, because they're basically used up, right? You don't go and spend a bunch of time trying to put a used car back together. And so a lot of these older women, they go fucking nuts. They get the plastic surgery and everything else. And everybody realizes, oh, you're just batshit crazy and you're good for the weekend. And that's it. And those are the people that are even willing to date the older women to begin with, right? So you have to understand that, like, you know, feminism does a real disservice to older women. Whereas if a woman gets married young, as she ages, once her children are starting to grow and she loses her looks, that's when marriage becomes a real good deal for her, because now she's protected. But a lot of these women, they destroy the first half of their life, or I should say they waste the first half of their life and end up destroying the second half. And then they end up dying in poverty or bitter, or they end up being super crazy and sociopathic. So you have to understand that this is a societal problem, and it's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic, and it's happening all over the Western world. And your problem is that men are growing up and they're seeing this stuff. We're seeing a resurgence of people identifying as MGTOW. And even people who disagree with MGTOW go, well, you know, I'd never get married. Okay, well, you're MGTOW. Congratulations. And so you're in a situation now where society is moving away. And everybody's like, and you hear the Christians go, and you hear some of the Nat Sox go, well, you know, you're just a Jewish, MGTOW is a Jewish thing. No, it's not. It's self-preservation. And those of us in the MGTOW community understand that in the long term, MGTOW is not a solution to the societal problems. But what it is it's a solution for the individual man. And so not every man goes MGTOW, not every man stays MGTOW, and those things are okay. But, you know, when it comes to a lot of this stuff with child support, domestic violence, and when it comes to having your life destroyed, that's an issue. Let me tell you something. My personal experience, okay? My first marriage cost me $250,000. My second marriage cost me over almost $100,000. And at the end of my second marriage, when my youngest turned 18, I literally had next to nothing to my name. Now I've had to rebuild. I've got multiple vehicles again. I've got property. I've got 2 properties I own outright, you know. But again, it's because I built those things. So despite everything else. Anyway, I'll quit soapboxing. Naroki?
All right, yeah. This is something that I got to point out because I deal with this on the far right a lot. And my there's been some indirect arguments stated against it. I think first thing I ask anybody on the far, the white nationals who go on this big, huge MGTOW is a Jewish conspiracy, and it's well, yeah, okay, name the prominent Jew that's actually part of MGTOW, because there really isn't any. There's an indirect argument that I've heard used. It says, well, Jews started feminism, and MGTOW is the flip side of feminism. Therefore, MGTOW is a Jewish thing. And I'm like, no. This was going the whole concept. Well, the entire manosphere in general, because each man that deals with it in their own specific way. But I mean, MGTOW was almost inevitable. The book How Men on Strike. I can't remember her name right off the top of my head.
I think it's Helen Smith.
Helen Smith, yeah. When she wrote that book, she didn't call it MGTOW. She called it Going Galt. And I was always kind of meaning to find out, like, was Going Galt something separate and just got merged into MGTOW, or was it just something that morphed into MGTOW?
Well, so back in the day, so if you and this is another shill alert here, if you go to Misandry today and you look on the website, misandrytoday.com, that's my website. I actually have a lot of the blog posts posted there from the original MGTOW and the original Manosphere, and that website, which I think is still up, is called No Ma'am, and it's on Blogspot, which is a Google product. But if it ever gets taken down, I host it personally on my website so people can read it. I call it the MGTOW Bible. Now, with that said, there were guys talking about MGTOW in the early 2000s. They just didn't call it MGTOW right away. Like it didn't actually have a name at that point, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole Manosphere developed from those MGTOW conversations from these group of people online, the Manosphere, which we now call the Manosphere, right? But you have to understand that, like, once MGTOW came out, then all of a sudden, they termed it, they said, look, here's a symbol, here's a term, and here's the manifesto, right? So that's when everybody was like, okay, we're going to call this MGTOW. But you have to understand that, like, people like Helen Smith and a lot of people that are, whether they're e-celebrities or regular celebrities, what they're trying to do is they're trying to brand things so people associate that brand with them. So for her, it was Going Galt. When Roosh decided to go from being a PUA dating coach to becoming MGTOW, he called it neo-masculinity. So everybody was trying to come up with their own unique term for MGTOW.
No,
but
right
they were
there,
basically saying the same thing.
Hold on a minute, DDJ. Right there is a good thing that we really need to kind of back up and talk about, because you guys are saying MGTOW all the time. But I think, I think the people who are viewing really need to have a good explanation of what MGTOW is. You know what I mean? Kind of, explain to people who are listening, look, this is what MGTOW is. This is what we stand for, because, like, the whole time that we've been talking, not one time has that been explained. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the issue. It's highly individualistic. So, I mean, the only 4 common factors that I have been able to find in it is that, one, it's a marriage boycott. It's highly individualistic. There's no women in MGTOW, and it's anti-gynocentric. Those seem to be the only four things that I have noticed that all MGTOW have in common. Beyond that, it's like, well, there's things that it's not. Like, it's not a female boycott. It's like, it's not female separate. It's not masculine separation. Although some guys do go monk. It's not a movement per se. It's more akin to a philosophy. It's not an organization. There's no leader. There's no one person that speaks for the entirety of MGTOW. So, it's at its core, it's really basic and it's really simple. I mean, it's a guy who's figured out, either by trauma, by a divorce or a bad relationship, or in my case by false accusations, that the system is severely rigged, and just grew up in an environment. And this is happening a lot with the younger generation. He just grew up around a lot of toxic women and kind of figured out what was going on.
Well,
and decided that you don't want to get married, and that's basically where it starts. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's essentially like, no, I'm not getting no marriage, no cohabitation. That's the core.
Yeah, and technically, the founders of MGTOW created a manifesto, right? And the manifesto had 3 pillars. The first pillar was support positive masculinity, and then they kind of gave some examples. The second pillar was to support positive femininity, and they gave some examples. The third pillar was to support limited government, and they kind of gave a brief explanation why. Now, the reason that this is relevant is because the reason that MGTOW men avoid marriage and avoid cohabitation with a woman, which could lead to common law marriage, is because a lot of these women they don't display positive femininity. In other words, they're not nurturing, they're not loving, they're basically they're cancer, right? They're just cancer, right? So it's like, if you could find a woman that you think is going to be useful or whatever, great. If you want to marry her, MGTOW doesn't care whether you get married or not. They just want you to know what the possible risks are, right? It's like, look, think about it like this, right? If you want to walk outside covered in tinfoil in the middle of a lightning storm, and you get shocked, and we tell you, hey, if you walk outside covered in aluminum in a lightning storm and you might get electrocuted from lightning, and you go out and do it anyway, well, that's on you, right? But people will see you get electrocuted and go, maybe I don't want to be that dipshit, right? Maybe I don't want to do that. It's like, I always tell people, the example I use is this. Okay, the divorce rate in the United States is roughly 50%. In the United States, the paternity fraud rate is roughly 30%. That means that if you have a baby with a woman, there is a 3 in 10 chance that baby is not yours. Okay, so bear that in mind. So think about it like this. Marriage is a combination of an emotional and a professional relationship. It's a business relationship and a personal one, right? It's a combination of the two. If I go into business with a business partner and there is a 50% chance I know that this business is going to fail because this person violated my trust or violated the business agreement because they defrauded me, right? And I go out and I decide that I want to hold them accountable and I want to sue them, but the court always sides with the fraudulent business partner. And I know that there's a 50% chance this business will fail. And if it fails, there's a 70-90% chance it'll be my business partner that screws me and then tries to take our hard work and go and continue that business with somebody else under a different name, right? Do I really want to go into business with that person? No, because the risk is too high. It's like think about it like this, like a job situation, right? You're a manager and you're at an employer and you're looking to hire somebody, right? And that person walks in and you say, hey, what is your biggest strength? And they say, I'm a successful liar. And you're like, okay. What is your biggest weakness? I'd say loyalty. Okay. Are you going to hire that person? No, you're not going to hire that person. You're going to be like, that person is going to fuck me the first chance they get, and not in a good way. And I won't even get dinner and a movie before they do, and they're going to go in dry. So no, I that's not a person I want to hire. So pardon me for just a minute. I have to cough. Pardon me.
But yeah.
Thank you. So go ahead.
That right there, does bring up a good topic, and the reason why I was wanting to have you discuss that was because, like I said, the average person really hasn't heard about MGTOW. Now, I've heard bits and pieces here and there about you guys, but I never really heard the full story. You know what I mean?
But it's like what Naroki said. It's not a movement; it's a philosophy,
right.
And every man makes a decision for themselves. So, like, there's a lot of MGTOW that date women. There's a lot of Human is MGTOW. Human dates. Barbarossa is MGTOW. Barbarossa has dated.
Spetsnaz definitely dates. I know that.
Yeah, Spetsnaz dates. I date. Mm-hmm. So it's about cohabitation, and it's about avoiding the definition of common law marriage, but it's also about doing a cost benefit analysis and a risk reward analysis. So you have to understand that. When it comes to a lot of this, that's where the personal philosophy comes from. Since 2015, a lot of MGTOW have shunned the idea of politics because a lot of the 2015 MGTOWs were leftists. Now, that doesn't mean that they're bad people. Some of the best videos that have come out have come from Barbarossa and even old TFM and a lot of those older MGTOW content creators. But your problem is that, if we ignore politics as a MGTOW, and again, this is my personal opinion, not anyone else's, I only speak for myself, but I believe that if MGTOW or men in general continue to ignore politics, we're going to see more tyranny and more draconian stuff and more trauma and civil unrest all across the Western world.
Well, speaking of tyranny, I mean, there's been moves, for instance, to redefine what cohabitation means in order to keep men on the hamster wheel.
Yes, and in Australia is a perfect example of that. So like a couple years ago in Australia, if you kept your toothbrush at your girlfriend's house, or if she decides, and let me tell you something, if you've dated a woman, you know that bitch is going to nest, right? She's going to leave underwear at your house. She's going to leave shit at your house, right? Because she's afraid that some other woman's going to show up and go, and basically that's just what women do. They're like dogs. They mark their territory, whether it's with perfume or whatever, right?
No, you did.
Right. But if they do that in Australia and you've been dating for 6 months and she's got, let's say you gave her a drawer to keep her clothes, like a change of clothes, right? They say, oh, you're common law married. Fuck you. And now she can divorce rape you. And then on top of that, they do what's called domestic violence has been expanded under the DV orders to do what's called coercive control. So let's say you won the lottery and you're worth $300 million. And she says, hey, I need $1 million because I want to go buy my mom a house. And you say no. She can file a domestic violence restraining order against you for coercive control because you didn't give her $1 million. So, that law exists in Canada, the United Kingdom, in Spain, in Australia, and most of the Western European, or all of the European Union, I should say. And by the way, in Spain, if you get accused of rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, even if you're innocent, you still have to go on a registry, even if you're innocent.
Yeah. And see,
so you have to, it's cancer.
Something else I mentioned too. You guys were talking earlier, and you brought something up that is pretty important for people to know as well. Like when you get in trouble over custody laws and stuff like that because family services or something had to come in and investigate you, be aware that even with just the accusation, if you don't go after the investigation is done and have that expunged, that will stay on your record for 6 years. And you will never be able to have any kind of job relating to children again for 6 years until frickin' that's over.
Oh, I've had to tell guys, because I'm at 12. I've been clean and sober almost 40 years, and I've had to tell a number of guys over the years. It's well, more recently than anything, I've had to tell a number of guys. It's like, if your ex screws you over during a transfer of the kids, or you have even one stressful incident, you have to completely change the rules around exchange. And you may even have to go so far as to either A, have a witness, or B, actually have a recording device on clandestinely to make sure that she doesn't do it again. right? And oh, by the way, you also might want to go and take a look, get a lawyer, or go and take a look at your legal records to make sure that this incident wasn't recorded somewhere.
Exactly.
Well, here's another example of misandry, which, by the way, is discrimination against men, as well as a combination of gynocentrism. Okay. Some ragged thought, which, by the way, is an acronym. It stands for that hoe over there, right? Some ragged thought,
or 304.
Exactly. She decides that she's going to take naked photos of herself, right? And she sends you the naked photos, right? She gives them to you. If you share those with your friend, in a lot of places, you can go to prison for it. Okay? Now, it's not your fault she sent them. She may have sent them unsolicited. But if she gets embarrassed because people find out that she's just a cheap slut, you can go to prison for it. Okay? They call it revenge porn. So you have to understand, like, it's not revenge. It's that we think you're funny, that you're so promiscuous and you lack such impulse control that you're willing to take nude photos of yourself, knowing that there's a good possibility that they're going to get shared with strangers. You fucking idiot.
Oh,
and that's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
And you know, I mean, to date, like literally almost every guy I know that's been in a relationship has had nudes sent to them by their girlfriends. Like, I'm going to say it's upwards of 90%.
Oh, I used to, yeah, that used to happen to me. And I actually told every woman, I was like, you send me a nude photo and I'm breaking up with you. And they're like, what? I said, you send me a nude photo, I'm breaking up with you. I said, you know, I don't want to see a photo. I want audience participation. If that's not enough, then we need to break up.
Well, I think a lot of women, though, are actually, I mean, they find a thrill out of that, to be honest with you, because, I mean, you look on the internet, and you can't tell me that freaking there's more freaking nude photos of women than dick pics. I'm sorry,
listen,
but it's true.
Yeah, listen, the issue is this. Women are human beings. In other words, they exist to exist, right? Men are human doings. Men are judged by what they do. So, you know, a lot of modern women, they judge their value based on who's been between their legs or who's dumped a load in their mouth. A lot of men will, at least heterosexual masculine men anyway, will judge their value not based on that, of course, unless they're faggots, but they'll judge their value based on you know, what they do, like, in other words, their achievements in life, what they've accomplished, what they've come back for, the trials they've overcome, which are traditionally masculine traits from, you know, the beginning of time. So I think that when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and again, this goes back to the MGTOW self-reliance, people don't want us to be self-reliant. That's why you see DoorDash and Uber. They don't think you can drive, so you know you need to go get an Uber. They think that you can't cook for yourself, so you need to DoorDash your food and get all the, you know, fast food. Like McDonald's meals now in many places in the United States are $15-20 for a combination meal, right? And you get dog shit from it. So it's a lot cheaper to rely on yourself and to cook for yourself and to do things. And that's the other aspect of MGTOW that a lot of people don't understand, is that, you know, MGTOW have to be self-reliant. They have to be. And you see a lot of people, they're not. And speaking of self-reliance, that's the other thing. A lot of women, they make money now. They make decent money. There's a lot of women out there who make more money than men because of our gynocentric society. And they think they're quote unquote boss bitches, or they think that they are independent because they make a shit ton of money. Well, here's your problem, right? They can't repair their toilet. They can't repair their roof. They can't repair their yard. They can't repair their garden if they've got a garden in front of their house, right? A little, you know, like a, you know, not a vegetable garden, but, you know, like a flower garden, right? A lot of them can't do all these different things that need to be done. They can't plunge a toilet. They can't fix a leak. They can't replace a window. They can't do all the things that they need. They have to hire somebody to do it. You know who they hire? They hire men. Because men created society. Men are the ones who keep society functioning. And when shit hits the fan, you don't see women rushing to the front lines when it comes to war or when it comes to natural disasters. You see groups of men from all walks of life going, you know, we're going to go and we're going to fix this, or we're going to solve this. We're going to figure out the hurricane victims or whatever. You don't see women doing that. You know, so you have to understand that women need men more than they're willing to admit. And, you know, even like you look across the United States when it comes to like transportation infrastructure, when it comes to a lot of the breakdowns in society, whether it be the automatic checking system or your bank making a mistake or whatever, you know who it is typically? It's either a diversity hire or it's a woman who's responsible for that failure. It's like Equifax a couple of years ago, talked about this online. Equifax a couple of years ago had a huge hack. 140 million Americans' accounts were hacked by Equifax. Well, it turned out that Equifax head of security had a master's degree in music theory, and she was a diversity hire. She was not qualified for the job, but they put her in it anyway because they had to meet their diversity quotas. You look at Google, for example. Google is fantastic, or AI, right? You have all these diversity hires and these non-Americans who want to police American speech. Did you know that like Twitter and Facebook, the majority of their censors and their quote unquote trust and safety teams, they were not in the United States. They were in Africa, they were in India, and all these different places. So these people had no knowledge of the Constitution. They had no knowledge of free speech rights because they don't have that in their little shithole countries, right? So they come here and they're like, oh, well, you know, we have totalitarianism in our country. We're going to bring it to the United States. That's why you see all the big tech people. They're not natural born Americans. They're foreigners from another country who just, they hate the Constitution, they hate the United States, and they don't have that institutional knowledge that somebody who's been here 2 or 3 generations has. It's the same thing for Canadians and Australians and people in the United Kingdom. You have these foreigners who come in who are first generation foreigners, maybe even second generation foreigners, and they come in there and they think they understand the institutional history when they can't even recite the Constitution, let alone, you know, the values of that culture. They bring their own values with them. And it's not to say that a melting pot isn't important, but these people are not trying to assimilate. What they want to do is they want to turn this country or their Western countries into the same shithole that they came from, because their trauma that they suffered in their country is what's comfortable and familiar to them. So they need to create that same level of trauma in the countries they're immigrating to. And you see big tech embracing this, and you see the federal government, the Biden regime embracing this, and you see a lot of these people. Like MGTOW has been listed as a hate group by the ADL, and the ADL trains the FBI and all 3-letter agencies. So we're considered like extremists from the get-go. And all we want to do is say, look, don't shit on men. That's really the message of MGTOW, is don't shit on men. Don't discriminate against men just to be discriminatory. Because I'll tell you what, there are male rapists, right? There are male murderers. There are male domestic violence abusers. Men are the top of the IQ scale, but the reality is we're also at the bottom. Women are about the center of the IQ scale, somewhere between 90 and 110, something like that, right? But there are more male knuckle draggers out there than there are female knuckle draggers out there. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to discriminate against the rest of us who are either average IQ or above average IQ when it comes to that sort of thing. You have to understand that what they're doing is like what Naroki said. Somebody takes some little anecdotal story on the internet and then they conflate it to be all men, even though that might be the exception and not the rule. And then your other problem is that they say, well, we need to discriminate against these men and make tougher rules against these men. Well, the only men they're going after, it's like cops, right? If you've ever lived in a bad neighborhood, you've ever lived in a ghetto, and I have, okay? Cops don't arrest thugs. They don't pull them over. You have some thug bumping his gangster music, right? Or narco corrido mariachi stuff or whatever the cartels listen to, right? That cop's not pulling that guy over or the carload of guys over. They're pulling over grandma. They're pulling over the guy who looks like he goes to church every Sunday, and they're arresting him. Okay. And you can see this. That's what law enforcement is about. Law enforcement is about keeping law-abiding citizens in line. It's not about actually stopping crime. And if you live in a left-wing stronghold and you try to stop crime and you pull a gun on somebody to protect yourself, you're going to prison. You see it in New York, you see it in St. Louis, Missouri, you see it in LA, you see it in Seattle. All these people who claim self-defense, they're all getting hammered. And again, it's because this is an attack against Western male values. And the reason that this is important, especially to MGTOW, is part of that limited government pillar, but also more importantly, who defends society? Who defends a nation? Who defends a community? Who defends the family? It's men. The reality is you can't have a family without a father, right? Because even if you have two faggots that are together and they're like, we're going to have kids, like what's his face, Dave Rubin and his faggot husband, right? They can't have children. They're not female. They can't biologically do it. So what they do, they child traffic a child and they call it adoption. Right, that's what they do. Same thing with dykes. The only difference with dykes is that dykes will sometimes they'll go and they'll have some guy, drop a load in her so she can have a kid, like a surrogate father type of thing.
And then hit him for child support several years later. That's happened a few times.
Yeah, that happens a lot, and dykes are real good about that. So you have to understand this is about destroying the heterosexual Christian family. And the reality is, when I say Christian family, I don't give a shit about what form of Christianity you have or whatever. But the United States and a lot of the Western world, they're whether you're atheist or not, they're generally speaking, they're Christian nations. And Christianity is the only religion in the world that teaches forgiveness. The Muslims don't do it. The Jews don't do it. The Buddhists don't do it. So and definitely the atheists don't do it. And you see that in a lot of, and not all. I mean, obviously, hashtag not all atheists, right? But on the same token,
thank you.
You're welcome. And so, but what I'm saying is that when these anti-Christians, they're not necessarily non-Christians, they're specifically anti-Christians. They go after Christians for shit that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago when the Christian person in question may have paid the price for what they did, or they may have made a mistake. They were forgiven and they moved on. Whether that forgiveness was a prison sentence or whatever, they move on. Well, the anti-Christians can't do that. You see, the United States was founded on the idea of not only innocent until proven guilty, but it was also founded on the idea that you cannot be criminalized or demonized or destroyed or had your life, attacked, I should say, or had your life destroyed for the crimes of your relatives or the crimes of your neighbors, right? So guilt by association is not a thing in the United States. That's a European thing. That's a Eurotrash thing. And so, and every other country in the world has some flavor of that, including China. But in the United States, that's what separates us. But yet they brought it in the United States where they're like, oh, you're friends with such and such, so therefore we need to demonize you. Or, you took a photo with such and such, so therefore you're trash, right? That sort of thing. Or why are you associated with that person? Guilt by association. That is a anti-American perspective. That is an anti-American viewpoint, and it is discriminating against Americans by bringing that to the table. But that's what the left does. And so if they can't attack you, they'll attack people you associate with, or they'll attack, whatever they do. Again, this is full spectrum warfare. You have to understand that. And the reason I bring that up, in generally speaking, I know I kind of cast the net a little bit wide when it comes to the political issues, is because men defend countries. Men defend families, men defend communities, whether that defense is in the form of community service or whether that defense is in the form of law enforcement or military or militia action. And so men were attacked first. The civil rights movement specifically was an AstroTurf campaign to attack and weaken men. Here's a fact that a lot of feminists don't want to talk about. In 1960, right, you had your rape rate, whatever it was pretty low, and I talk about it in my book. But in 1970, the rape rate went up by 400% after feminists became into fashion and started influencing the levers of power. So feminism didn't actually help women. It hasn't even helped women in second wave feminism. It's hurt them all the way through. No one wants to talk about these indefensible feminist hypocrisies. And by the way, feminism and communism, feminism is just the tip of the spear of communism. So they use feminism to attack men, to weaken men, to demonize men, and to make misandry mainstream in the United States, so that that basically everybody in power now is a weak man. And you can see it. You've got these guys running around like Jack Murphy, perfect example. I'm an alpha male manosphere guy, but this guy turns out he likes college boys. He likes stuffing shit up his ass, and he thinks it's great when his wife has sex with other men. That's not masculinity, right? You should never wait in line for your wife, okay? If you have to wait in line for your wife, she's not marriage material. Because the reality is, and everybody's known this since time immemorial, you can't turn a whore into a housewife. So, but that said, men were attacked first. Men were attacked. Now, in 2023, there's a masculinity crisis. There's a testosterone crisis where you've got guys who should have lower T because we lose testosterone as we age. That's a normal thing, right? But you have guys that are 40, 50, 60 years old who are not on TRT, who have higher testosterone than men 20, 30, 40 years their junior. And these guys are sitting here going, they're these effeminized guys, and then you wonder why the trans movement is so prevalent. It's gone from I think she's attractive to I want to be her, right? And part of the reason that some of these men go troon is because they see how men are treated and they want to be treated better than men. So they, chop their dick off and get their HRT and they go full insane and they pretend that, they can do what they can do. But the reality is they're never going to change their chromosomes. They're never going to change their biology, no matter what kind of internal or external cosmetic surgery they get. Right.
Well, which is why you're seeing a lot of trans saying, well, if you don't like trans, it's because it's like that same level of entitlement, except now it's aimed at men as opposed to women.
It's gaslighting. Yeah, it's gaslighting in its projection.
Now, do you believe that that's intentional, though? Do you believe
yes, I do.
There's a narrative
Absolutely.
In order to create that kind of environment?
No, I think what it is a full spectrum warfare on men, and I think trans is just the latest campaign in the war on men. And I think that so here's another example. So you see a lot of these guys, Donovan Sharp and a few others. I call him Needle Dick Cooper, but his name is Rich Cooper. People like that, right? They promote TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, or they promote steroids, right? A lot of these people promote steroids and HRT and everything else. Well, your problem is with a lot of these guys that promote all this stuff is that what they're not talking about is the long-term impacts, right? So steroids have a lot of long-term impacts for men, but one of the things that is not talked about is how many of these guys on steroids and testosterone replacement therapy, how they turn homosexual and how they turn gay, and how I'm repeating myself, I apologize, and how they go tranny. And so that's not talked about, but there's a lot of people in the military that have taken steroids and they're now trannies. There's a lot of people, like you see, there's pictures of bodybuilders who, they were these bodybuilders on steroids and they were huge and they were super masculine, had the big, pseudo alpha beard and everything else, right? And they turned troon. Look at what's his name? Bruce Jenner. Bruce Jenner did steroids, right? And he got older and he turned into a late stage tranny. So you have to, this is a huge issue that's not talked about amongst men. The reality is that we have to embrace the circle of life where older men have to mentor younger men in order to be able to teach these men, the institutional wisdom and the knowledge that they have and, from their experience on how to be better men. And you have so many of these people out there that are secular false prophets that are steering men in the wrong direction. They're like, well, you got to be hyper promiscuous. You've got to take testosterone replacement therapy. You got to make your dick larger. Here, take this pill for this. Or, if you don't smoke a pipe, you're not this or you're not that. And all this other crap. Right? None of these things are improving men. None of these things are serving to make them self-reliant. And then to add insult to injury, they're fucking life coaches on top of it. Well, life coaching was created by divorced women in the 80s and the 90s to give welfare moms a job, right? Yeah. There's no qualifications for life coach. Now, you watch, though, feminists will create a fucking college degree for life coaches at some point, right? But the reality is that you don't know who you're talking to, especially online. Well, now you've got these guys that they have no job skills. They're borderline homeless. They're basically practicing success porn and that they're being dishonest. They say never believe what the social media profile says. Look at their real life, right? Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. So but these losers, for all intents and purposes, they're manipulative con men and losers. They're like, oh, this is what you got to do. This is where you got to go. And they're not teaching men to be self-reliant. And then they're being dating coaches. And some of these guys are charging $5,000 an hour to sit there and basically have the equivalent of phone sex with these people on the phone. They're just, masturbating their ego for them. You're great. You're awesome. You're cool. It's all basic shit. And the reality is that nobody has to pay a dime for that shit. You go find the No Man blog. You know everything you need to know about the male-female situation, about masculinity. You can find that same blog reprinted on misandrytoday.com, and you get it for free. right?
Yeah.
There's no cost, there's no trial, there's no bullshit, there's no shill. And you can go a dozen other places online and you can find it. And you can go to Amazon, you can find a bunch of books on, red pill wisdom and knowledge and things like that. And so I see these people trying to monetize what used to be free, and they're acting like, like basically getting between a woman's legs is the golden egg, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I hate to break it to everybody, but men and women have been fucking since humanity started. Right?
Yeah. That's
like
pretty much how it started, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's like the Humpty Dance is your chance to do the hump. But I'm saying, like, but on top of that, like, it's like these women that are like, my greatest achievement is having a child. Okay, well, so you got a participation trophy. So's 10,000 other women out there, right? They're all moms. The question is, having a child should not be your greatest achievement. Growing your child, teaching your child, mentoring your child, parenting your child, and watching your child becoming a successful adult with their own family, that should be what you're proud of. But they're not proud of that. They just want to pop the kid out and forget about it, right? Yeah. Assuming that, they're not going to have 15 abortions or destroy the kid with birth control before it's even born. But again, I think that it's one of those things that when you attack men, you attack masculinity, you're attacking the fabric of society. And American men, Western men, whether, again, United Kingdom, Irish, Canadian, Australian, a lot of Western men, they were born on self-reliance. The United States was founded on this idea of self-reliance and independence and rugged nationalism. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be a contractor and be able to build a house from the ground up. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know how to hunt and dress your game in the woods, right? There are other guys who can teach you how to do that to where you're not necessarily an expert, but you can kind of figure it out, right? Your men used to get together and go, hey, I want to put a driveway in my house. So you get 3 or 4 guys together over a couple beers, and they would lay out a driveway. And yeah, it might get a footprint or 2 on there because somebody had too many beers, but the driveway's there, right? Or they put in a fence, or they help each other with a roof, or whatever's going on. But men don't do that anymore. And while video games are important, I think the issue with video games is that video games early on were taken over by the LBGT mafia. And so what you saw, and I'm an old school Star Wars Galaxies, World of Warcraft gamer, right? Mm-hmm. And what we saw what I like to refer to as tranny online, to the point where all these guys would go online, they would pretend to be women in these video games in order to get benefits from them. And then what happened is that faggot software developers started making it more beneficial to be a female online than to be a male. So what they would do is they would like in 3D shooters, the female characters would have smaller hit boxes, so it'd be harder to hit them, right? Or they would add other small benefits to being female than male. And then what would happen is these guys, they would take heterosexual guys, and the heterosexual guys would get used to going, I'm the woman, right? It's basically tranny online. It's an insidious form of indoctrination. It's something I've spoken out since time immemorial. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't like to see an attractive ass. It doesn't mean that I'm a faggot because I want to look at a male tune. But if I'm going to put myself in a situation in a video game and I want to be the fucking hero or whatever the deal is, or the villain for that matter, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a female. I don't want to envision myself as a woman. Right? I'm happy with my masculinity. I have a dick and balls, and my pubes have grown to a point where I'm comfortable with them. So I think that, that's the issue, you're right. And so what's happened is men have been demonized to such a degree that they can't accept who they are. So they become homosexual, or they become, or they get manipulated into becoming homosexual, whether it be through date rape, through alcohol, or you get these guys that are harassing these guys that haven't had sex. There's like a lot, I know a lot of MGTOW Discord channels, or a lot of Manosphere Discord channels. They were infested with trannies who were literally going after these men to try to turn them gay because they saw the desperation of men, so they were using them as predatory hunting grounds. Yeah. TFM server was one of them. So you have to understand.
That explains it. That explains why I was seeing what I was seeing there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The TFM server was one of them, and I spoke out against it a lot, and I was in the minority because everybody thought I was insane. And now you look at the long-term impacts, and you've got trannies everywhere online. You've got guys like Andrew Tate, for example, who talks about, oh, you need to go get laid and get pussy and whatever, and he's promoting sleeping with trannies, okay, on video.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, I need to clarify something. He was given a choice between the two, and he's a really attractive
It's a false dichotomy.
Yeah. It was a false dichotomy that they was being forced to choose from. I actually saw that video. He didn't actually say he would sleep with trannies.
He did.
If he was given that choice, that he would go with the trannies. Yeah.
Right. And but here's the issue. It's a false dichotomy. And the reality is, if you're male and you're a positively masculine male, number one, you shouldn't be sleeping with anybody with a bunch of fucking work done, cosmetic work. Because number one, if you're breeding age and you want to have a child, right? A chick who has a bunch of plastic surgery is not going to be an accurate example of what your child's going to grow up to look like. Your child might be fucking Quasimodo with like fucking 10 fingers on their foot as opposed to their hand, right? So you don't know what that fucking kid's going to come out to look like. That kid might just be some fucking degenerate, right? So you have to understand that a naturally beautiful woman or a naturally attractive woman should always be the priority over some woman who's had a bunch of surgery done, and go from there. Because the other reason is what happens if she's a post-op tranny. Like look at Blair White, right?
Yep.
Or I forget his real name, but he's a dude, but he's had so much plastic surgery done. I was actually in a restaurant, and I was within 10 feet of Blair White and could not tell that he was a man.
No, he's the one that got busted,
I was totally
recently?
by that as well. Yeah.
But my point is that that's why you have to understand that all of these people they create these false dichotomy. The reality is that no one's going to get put in a room and say choose between the ugly woman or the tranny with a lot of cosmetic surgery. No one's ever going to say that, right?
No.
So you have to understand. But the point is that they're pushing this. And they're pushing this to make men more dependent. You don't empower a man by taking away their choice. You don't empower a man by giving them false dichotomies or pigeonhole them into examples and go, oh, you got to choose one. No, you don't. And as a MGTOW man, as a man who's self-reliant, or I like to think I'm self-reliant, we have a choice. As a heterosexual male, we have a choice, and we have a choice to stay. We have a choice to go. And the reality is, at the end of the day, it's our wallet. It's our choice. The problem is that we've had so many people try to discriminate against us as men that they want to limit our choice. So, for example, if we get a woman pregnant, right, that woman, she has more parental rights than we do out of the gate. She can choose to keep the child. She can choose to kill the child. She can choose to carry the child to term and then adopt the child out, right? Men who are fathers get no such choice. We don't have any decision of whether or not we want the child aborted, even if we support abortion. Pardon me for a second, I have to sneeze.
Okay.
Thank you.
First person I've ever met that did that. Muted so you could sneeze.
I just don't want to do that in your recording. I think it's disrespectful.
It's pretty cool, though. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just you're the first person I've ever met that did that. So.
Yeah, well, thank you. Everybody should do it. So, but yeah, he doesn't get a chance to abort the child, even if he agrees with abortion, right? And I don't agree with abortion, but I'm just saying that that's on the table for a lot of women, legally speaking. He doesn't get a chance to say, I don't want this child. And you need to adopt it out, or you can raise it on your own. He doesn't get that choice. Now, the reason that's important, again, is because there are Facebook groups out there. There are social media groups out there that teach women how to sperm jack men. Mm-hmm. That happens. That's a legit thing. If you watch, oh God, what is that? There's a show on HBO. It's a real popular show about this guy. He's a fixer for
They've been
Jewish.
talking about it from the time of Law and Order. I think they had a really popular episode off of there where a woman was a prostitute, or supposed to be one, and she ends up knocking the guy out and using electrical shock to get freaking sperm out of his body and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens. I mean, trust me, it's real common. And what they do is, if you have a condom, they'll take the condom and they'll insert it in themselves. So you have to understand that, and then we used to joke. We used to say, well, what you do is you take horsey sauce from Arby's and you put it in the condom so that when they put it in themselves, they burn themselves. Well, people actually did it. And the guys who did that, they ended up getting criminally prosecuted because they're like, how dare you prevent us from fraudulently taking your seed, right?
Oh, yeah, they talk about in R.K. Hendricks, How to Get Laid Without Getting Screwed. I think he mentions that, the moment you ejaculate, even if it's in a condom, it's like you are responsible for that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you what you do is at the end of it, it's like, and this is a part that a lot of guys don't want to. They just want to get laid and get out of there, and they don't
Of
think
course.
about the after, right? So it's like, no, you take the used condoms, you go to the toilet, you flush the condoms, and you see the condoms go down the toilet. You don't just
Correct.
throw them out in the trash.
Correct.
That includes the hankies, man. You take the hankies, they go. You physically see that material going down the toilet. That way, she can't use it because it was mentioned. It's been mentioned numerous times. I think DDJ talks about this.
Yep.
And we're gonna go swing around here to the court situation where this guy had his mother in jail in a hospital, and he had a thing that him and this nurse had a thing, and this nurse gave him a blowjob, and she said, well, don't worry about the semen, I'll get rid of it, right? So he just took her word for it, and she used that to impregnate herself and hit the guy for child support because apparently this guy had some financial means about him. And you see story, and they try to minimize it. Oh well, paternity fraud.
And she won, by the way. She won the court fight. Yeah.
And it's like, and for instance, if you try, for instance, to get a paternity test in court, like it will be. I've heard Kate. I don't know how many times DDJ has run into it, but I mean, getting a paternity test sometimes to determine who the actual father is of the child, that will be hotly and brutally contested.
Oh, it's even worse. It's even worse than that, right? So a lot of courts, they're now starting to make it illegal for a man to get a paternity test unless they have the woman's permission, right? And then in addition to that, if you do get a paternity test, they're saying that if you don't get it within like the first year to 3, you waive it. So there are a lot of men out there. So you see the reason is this, right? You're not going to know the kid's not yours normally until puberty, when the child starts taking the traits of the actual biological father. So if you challenge it at that point, it's too late. And that's the issue. So you have to understand, like it's cancer.
With my youngest son, I never wanted to contest it. The reason why I got the DNA in the first place was because I freaking knew who my ex was, and I just wanted to make sure, you know what I mean? And plus, my name wasn't on the birth certificate, so I wanted DNA to freaking prove that was my son. And when I turned around and did that, she actually made it out like I was portraying her as a slut. You know what I mean? It was like, and that was farthest from the truth. All I wanted to do was have physical proof that he was my son.
Well, and that's a gaslighting form, right? That's just straight gaslighting, and that's the issue, is that they want you to feel as guilty as you possibly can, so they can make you out to be a demon. And it's like, okay, well, I wasn't insulting you by calling you a slut. I was describing you. So, I mean,
I wasn't even making it a part of the issue. It was, I mean, I knew who she was, and I had no problem with her at that point. I just wanted to have some form of documentation showing that was my son.
Right.
And
you're entitled to that. That's the thing. People act like, well, you're a horrible man for doing that because you want to protect yourself. Well, the reality is that, that's all bullshit. So, you have a right to defend yourself. Again, it's your wallet, your choice.
Both my sons were born out of marriage, you know what I mean? And my first one was actually a teen marriage, which I'm not proud of it, but it happened, you know what I'm saying? And I made the mistake of not doing stuff like that whenever my oldest boy was born, and that I paid for that. Now, when my second son came along and the same situation popped up about the birth certificate, that's when I insisted, look, I need a DNA test. And
the show that I was referring to, by the way, is called Ray Donovan. It's a Showtime show.
I heard him.
One of the episodes, there was a celebrity who got sperm jacked by a woman, and he had to get the sperm back so that she didn't get him raped. Now, I will say this, though. It's like the sperm jacking issue, let's take it a step further. So there's a huge epidemic of married women between mid-20s to late 40s who are sexually assaulting teenage boys. Okay? Now, for a lot of teenage boys with a healthy level of testosterone, masturbation is their favorite hobby, right? Okay? To the point where they might, some of them might even have calluses on their hands from it. But the point is like, because you're a teenage boy, you're like, oh my God, right? The wind blows the wrong direction and you get an erection. So the point is that, a lot of these boys get harassed. There was a guy in New Mexico who was 14 who was raped by his teacher, which is, by the way, is way more common than people. I mean, there's a reason why Van Halen did that song Hot for Teacher, okay? It's because everybody knows it happens. But anyway, this kid was sexually assaulted by his teacher. He was 14 years old. When he turned 18, she decided to keep the kid. He turned 18. He had to pay child support, So this is it's a huge issue that a lot of people and not enough people are talking about, because a lot of these kids, it's like, do you really want your childhood destroyed, or do you want to walk into adulthood in debt? The reality is, the answer is no. You should have an option to choose whether or not you want to parent a child. There's a lot of birth control out there. And the reality is that unless you're Catholic, even though Catholics are now embracing troons and homosexuals, the reality is that most Christians, there's no, the Bible doesn't talk about birth control as a negative thing, right? They only talk about abortion. So, men need to make sure that these women are using birth control, whether it's a copper IUD or whatever. They need to know. And the other thing is that hormonal birth control, like birth control pills, for example, or hormonal IUDs, they change what a woman is attracted to. And so if you have a child with a woman, let's say you get married with this woman and you want to have a child together, you need to understand that once she gets pregnant and has that child, she may not be attracted to you anymore, because the hormonal birth control changes what she's attracted to. So you need to understand, in order to be around her before you get married, be around her for an extended period of time when she's not on birth control, and see what she's like. And if that relationship doesn't survive the non-birth control test run, that's not the woman for you. And it's not that she's a piece of garbage. It's just that birth control, hormonal birth control, changes a woman's biology to the point that it changes what she's attracted to. There are many women out there that are like, I want to be married and I want to have this child, but I just don't love you anymore, right? And they don't even know why. And everybody thinks, oh, that's an excuse. It's not. It's because they were on birth control. And you can go ahead. Sorry,
I just something that crossed my mind here. The birth control may explain why so many more women are choosing the wrong guy. I mean, Teal Swan got into that whole thing. Teal Swan is the only woman, by the way, who's actually given a full documented explanation as to why women keep choosing assholes. And it's like, when they're on birth control, basically the body is being fooled into thinking that it's ovulating. And when women are in that state, they will prefer more masculine males, aka the assholes, which is why syndrome. These guys are,
I've heard of it,
have been doing so much better in the last few decades, because birth control probably may have had a factor into it. Yeah.
Yeah, that and stuff like 50 Shades of Rape. So, books like that, movies like that, those types of things. Those are super important factors. But the other thing is that when a woman gets off of birth control and she's no longer attracted to you, she's going to want to go out with her friends to ladies' night out. And usually it's when she's ovulating. Again, she's looking for the guy to give her the rail. So you have to understand that, there's a lot of things out there that are biologically, they are psychologically, they are politically engineered to destroy men, to destroy families, and to destroy communities and societies. Because the reality is that, again, you can't have a family without a father, and you can't have a strong community without strong families within that community. And once you have a strong community, you can't have a strong nation without a group of strong communities, I should say. And so, this is by design. It's meant to destroy the Western world, so that we're easily controlled by the powers that be. And that's why you have all these people that are the working poor. I know people that are making $300,000 a year and they're living paycheck to paycheck because they're the working poor. When the reality is that they've been sold into this indoctrinated consumerism where they think they need to do certain things. So it's really insidious, and it's definitely full spectrum.
Well, with that being said, I want to bring it to an end soon, but what I do want to bring up is now next week I'd like to have both of you back if you'd like, but this time have Naroki on the interview chair and you in the panel like he is. Would you guys be okay with that?
Yeah, it's going to depend upon whether I actually get dispatched or not.
Okay.
I would if we're going to do that, you may have to move. Like, I mean, I cannot guarantee my availability at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
After Monday.
After Monday.
What I would say is, yeah, if I have like 3 days notice, I'm pretty much available. But if you give me 3 days notice, I'm happy to be available, and definitely I can flex to Naroki.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the short answer is yes, but it's going to depend upon, because I'm not gonna. I was actually just discussing this last night when I was on my show. I was dealing with a rather toxic female boss at this last camp that I was at, and I told them when I got back in, and I'm not going back. I probably should maybe have this off the air, but basically I told them I wasn't going to be going back, and now there's this drawn out process that I now have to go through in order to get dispatched again, and that's the earliest that I'm going to be probably going out is sometime next week. But yeah, after Monday, it's gonna be, well, maybe I'll get dispatched, maybe I won't. So yeah, it's going to depend upon when I'm going out.
Well,
so
we'll take it minute by minute if we have to, and I mean, I do have topics and stuff. So if anything happens where you can't make it, I can always come up with a show. You know what I
okay.
mean? So
well, if you want to do it, we should do it Monday, just because I cannot guarantee my availability at 9 o'clock in the morning past Monday.
Okay.
At this point.
I would say that I actually have to be traveling this weekend. I may not actually be back by Monday. So if we do it on Monday, it may be later in the day might be better for me.
Okay. So we can.
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
The evening would be good. The evening would be good. By the way, we may have to edit this section out. So the short answer is yes, but anything after, say, Monday, it becomes like there'd be a lot more stuff to work out because I might be back out working. So,
okay. Yeah. So, now that we've got that straightened out, is there anything that you guys would say for a closing on everything that you've discussed?
Okay, yeah, I'll go first because DDJ's the host here, is the guy who's being interviewed. If you start looking around, what this is, and Paul Elam probably summed it up best of all the people that I've heard, is that there's this metaphorical gun that women have basically with any interaction that you have with them. Marriage turns that from a gun to effectively, like, you're more at this point. I mean, I hate to say this, but marriage is at this point it's more of a form of indentured servitude. And I hate saying that because I don't want to disparage the guys that have chosen to get married. But I mean, a lot of guys a lot of guys I've met have, when I tell them this, they don't even want to hear it. And it's like, and they get really angry with me. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like, if something happens down the road, like, don't say I didn't tell you, right? It's like, and men are starting to wise up, which is why you're seeing the marriage rates drop through the floor, right? And also, the kids that have grown up have seen what the women, the mothers, have done to the fathers in these relationships, and have decided, which is what caused me to decide not to get married and have kids, because I saw what my sister-in-law did to my brother back in the early 80s. Marriage is the current version of marriage is just corrupt as hell, don't do it. That's basically it. Don't do it. I mean, I'm not going to disparage the guys that have chosen to do it, but it's like, the benefits the benefits of being married are far outweighed by the risks, and it's like, and she could choose to do it for anything. And it's like what DDJ was talking about. I mean, there's actual websites and books that are written that tell you how to do it. And by the way, we didn't even get into the movie Divorce Corp, which I think is an absolute eye-opener that I think every single male out there should have a look at. I think it's either Divorce Corp or Divorce Incorporated. There's a documentary.
I think we should discuss that whenever you come back in. So
yeah, because I mean, and that's it from me. Just get your to the guys listening. Get yourself informed as to what you're getting into. The manosphere has been demonized, sort of impartially, unsuccessfully. But I mean, yeah, like start asking questions, because it's like, yeah, marriage is not what you think it is. And I'm going to turn it over to DDJ now. So,
the one thing I would say is that you never know a woman until you've known her through all seasons twice. In other words, at least 2 years. Okay, that's number one. Number two, society hates men. They hate heterosexual, masculine men. It's even worse if you're Christian. And so you have to understand that should be the baseline that you approach every interaction from. Now, that doesn't mean that you necessarily need to call everything out all the time. One of the concepts and one of the main tactics of MGTOW is ghosting. In other words, doing gray man techniques to kind of blend in, right? You don't want to walk around and go, I can't talk to you because you're a slut, right? You don't necessarily want to say something like that, right? Because you out yourself and you create more problems for yourself than you solve. And the other side of it is that not all men are red-pilled, and even some red-pill men are still simps. You see these guys who genuflect at the altar of the $2 pussy, and they're like, "Oh, you've offended milady," right? And usually it's trad cons and things like that in this day and age. It used to be leftists and atheists, but now it's mostly trad cons, right? So you have to understand that, like, if you find a woman who's positive and whatever, and she's, appropriate, talk to her family, get to know her family. Is mom and dad and her family still together? And is that her biological father, right? Those things are going to tell you how your marriage is going to turn out. Those are warning signs. If her family is still together and they go to church and they're a family, odds are, she's going to be a better choice than the girl raised in the trailer park who's been railed a couple dozen times before she was 18. So you have to understand that the other thing too, OnlyFans, strippers, anything like that those should be no-goes. That right there, that's fire and forget. That's fast food, and you leave it in the garbage where you found it. So you have to understand that when it comes to that sort of thing, that's the issue. The other thing you need to understand is that the wrong decision with a woman can destroy your life. And that's their goal. So my suggestion is this: do not follow for the indoctrination of consumerism. If you buy something, buy it. Don't lease it. Don't lease a car. Buy a car. Don't go and rent a place. Go buy a place. And the reality is, if you buy a place in a rural area, you're going to need to make less money than somebody in a built-up urban area. Comfort and convenience when it comes to masculinity and heterosexual men has been weaponized as a weapon. I mean, as a tool to be used against men. So, if you can stay away from big tech, if you can use alt tech where you can, those things are extremely important, and all the stuff that I've said today, that's all the tip of the iceberg. Like, each one of the subjects that I've covered today could be its own 2-hour conversation. So you have to understand that this is a deep dive, and this video is a primer of what could be a deeper dive into a lot of these subjects. And once you understand this, then you're like, okay, then you have to be careful. The other thing I would say too is, if you're going to date a woman, never where you work, never where you live, and never where you go to school. This way, when the relationship inevitably implodes or ends, you don't have to deal with them every day, right? So those things are important. Those things are relevant. If you want to find out a little more information about me, I'm not making videos at this point right now because I'm in kind of a transitional phase, but you can find me at Gab on Misandry Today. I still have videos up on YouTube at Misandry Today. You can go to my website, misandrytoday.com, and look at some of my older articles as well as the MGTOW Bible. And if you want to read the manifesto, it's there as well. Just definitely look at stuff. There's no money involved. I don't do this to get rich. I have a job. I have a life. I have job skills. So you're not going to hear me go, oh, well, I'll be happy to give you, masculine presenting life coaching or some bullshit like that or some grifter thing. My goal here is to help men, and it's to help the next generation of men. And you have to understand that, like, that's the other thing I'd say in closing. The generation wars amongst men, whether you're boomer or millennial or zoomer or whatever, those are tools meant to divide us. They do not want younger men learning or being mentored with the institutional wisdom and knowledge that older men possess. And the reason that is because they want you to fuck up and make the life-changing mistakes so they can destroy your life and keep you under control. So, and then finally, I know there's been some question about this recently. I've seen online, 4chan and elsewhere. Yes, traps are gay. So with that, I'm pretty much done with my closing statement.
I do appreciate you guys coming in. I will get with you guys on chat. Monday sounds great. We'll get that all going and set up a time for that. And I really enjoyed listening to you guys. You had a lot of good stuff to say. So with that, I will end the stream and say thank you for coming. And I'll send you a copy of everything after this is done. So.
All right, thanks. Right. Sorry, I got the recording here, but yes, send it anyway. All right, thanks. What was the name of that? All right, thank you very much.
All right. You guys have a good one.
You too. Bye.